Hello scaredy cats, it's me, Scaredy Matt. Longtime Meow Meow heads will know that my favorite film franchise is A Nightmare on Elm Street. The story of one plucky child murderer's quest to kill all the kids on his street, even though he's a ghost. If you're my age and like horror, it's inevitable that you love A Nightmare on Elm Street. You're not allowed to not like it, it's against the law. I will report you. About 30% of my motivation for starting this channel was just to have an excuse to talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street, and so far, I've only made like 1 or 2 videos about it. So today, I'm just gonna treat myself and rank all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies from worst to best. No games, no tricks, no nonsense, just a nice, orderly list of movies that I like and one that I don't. Just the feature films, not episodes of Freddy's Nightmares, even the one about Freddy's origin, not the complete audio of the 1-900 number that I saw on Reddit a few weeks ago, not any of Freddy's appearances in Mortal Kombat or whatever, none of the documentaries about the Nightmare movies, just some simple, normal content. Welcome to primetime, bitch. Number 9, the remake. Surprising no one, the worst Nightmare on Elm Street movie is the 2010 remake. Yes, it is. Shut up. Whenever you criticize something that is broadly disliked on the internet, no matter how bad it is, you end up with a slew of contrarians coming out of the woodwork to tell you, actually, it's just misunderstood genius. You don't get it. And in this case, I definitely get it. I got it because I've already seen it. I saw Nightmare on Elm Street 1984, which is this movie, but good. The Nightmare remake is somehow both watered down for mass appeal while still being far more mean-spirited and gross than the original. Everything about it screams of decision by committee, from having a more serious and scary Freddy to still letting him keep his Christmas sweater for that coveted market appeal. Pick a fucking direction. Somehow, you end up with worse effects than the 1984 movie. How are you getting beaten by the guys that made this? Jackie Earle Haley is not good as Freddy. He's just not. And that's not even grading on the Robert Englund curve. I assume this is a direction problem because I know that Jackie Earle Haley is a good actor, as evidenced by Maniac Cop 3, Badge of Silence. But he's just boring as Freddy. And Freddy should not be boring. He doesn't have to be turning people into pizzas, but he should be at least menacing instead of just kind of breathy. Number 8, Part 4, The Dream Master. Part 4 is when the franchise started going downhill, or rather, suddenly appeared at the bottom of the hill and everyone was like, huh, didn't I used to be at the top of the hill? From the moment that Freddy put on a pair of Ray-Bans, you knew this movie was going to be a slog. But for the life of me, I never would have expected the kung fu scene. Hey, you know what would be scary? What if Freddy was invisible? Okay, how do we visually convey that? Oh, it's simple. It's so simple. You just have a doofy looking teen do big kung fu swings in the empty air for an embarrassingly long time while we play borderline racist music. Remember that fun group of characters from the previous movie? Remember you spent a whole movie getting to know them and you have this emotional connection to them, and they all had unique powers and identities that made their confrontations with Freddy interesting? How about they all die in the first few minutes of this movie? How about that? Isn't that fun? Don't you like that? Thanks for being a fan of our movies, everybody. Number 7, Part 5, The Dream Child. Okay, so if Freddy can possess an unborn baby, how come he's never tried to do that before? And also, how come he did it to the one woman in Springwood who'd know how to stop him? It does not matter, because one guy gets turned into a motorcycle. Also, there's a baby Freddy. However, I am forced to dock marks for Super Freddy, which is probably one of the most embarrassing sequences in the whole franchise, which is saying something.
And Super Freddy sucks!
Honestly, you could put 4 and 5 in any order. They're the same movie, as far as I'm concerned anyway. I don't remember which one has the dog peeing on Freddy's skeleton to bring him back to life, but it's one of them. And the fact that I don't know which one it is should tell you something about the quality of these two films. Number 6 is Part 6, Freddy's Dead. That's right, motherfuckers! I think Part 6 is better than 3 whole movies in this franchise. Drink that in. This movie that everybody hates. I have become the very internet contrarian I so despised. Battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster, bitch. Look, this movie isn't very good, but it has a certain Goosebumps quality to it. Like, it's a perfectly good children's horror movie. Well, no, not perfectly good, it still kind of sucks, but it, unlike part 4 or 5, part 6 leans into the fact that the franchise was going downhill fast and just lets loose. Robert Englund gets to be a Looney Tunes character, and it's glorious to watch. It might also have something to do with the fact that this was the first Nightmare movie that I watched, so I didn't go into it with the expectation that it'd be any better than it is. Because part 6 suffers from being in a series of mostly better movies. But on its own, I think it's not great, but what else are you gonna see something like this?
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul, too!
Probably not a lot of places. 5. Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. I understand that Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 has undergone a certain critical reappraisal in the past few years. For decades, this movie was unfairly maligned for its gay subtext, treated as though it was this out-of-nowhere, fall-on-its-face failure, and it's not that bad, but come on everybody, come on. This movie has Freddy attacking a pool party full of teens, it has the teen dogs, it has the exploding bird. While I think the backlash to this movie was definitely homophobic, on its merits, it's not some masterpiece. It's astonishing to me that the criticism of this movie had been that it's so gay, when that is literally its strongest redeeming quality. There are 9 movies in this franchise where I can watch teens get sliced up, but only 1 where I can watch a leather daddy get whipped in the butt by a ghost towel. Also, there's this weird Tim Burton-y feel to a lot of this movie that doesn't get talked about enough. It has this slightly askew version of the American suburbs and nuclear family that makes the whole thing feel more satirical than other entries in this series. There's a vision to part 2 that other entries kind of lack, even if that vision is somewhat muddled in execution. Number 4, Freddy vs. Jason. I already did a video about this one, I already did it. I'm not gonna talk about it again, go watch that video for all of my takes on Freddy vs. Jason and my thoughts about it. Number 3, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. What if Freddy wasn't a Freddy, but instead some kind of Jungian Lovecraft monster that feeds on fear or something? And also, he came out of the movies and attacked the actors from previous movies in the real world. That's the pitch that Cocaine made for Wes Craven's New Nightmare. The trick that this movie pulls will never work again. To take a character out of their filmic world and into the real world, well, I guess not the real world, but like a different filmic world that's one less layer of abstraction away from the real world is just such a great way to reinvent a franchise like this. Like, how do you make Freddy scary again when he's become this marketing behemoth? Just make that diegetic in the world of your movie. They managed to turn the character's overexposure into a strength. Because like, when the characters are running around saying, I'm getting killed by Freddy Krueger, people look at them like, what? Like you would in real life. In real life, you'd be like, no, it's a character from movies. He can't get you. And I love the Freddy makeup in this one. Like, look at this guy, he's so angular. I do hate his little trench coat, that's a bit much. But his face gives me the real spooks. 2, A Nightmare on Elm Street. I debated having a 2-way tie for number 1, but that's not fun. That's not fun if I'm not forced to make a choice and give a hot take. That's not hashtag content. So here's my hot take. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a work of genius that, unfortunately, has not aged gracefully. Although mostly brilliant, there are occasionally moments that really take you out of the story. And that type of thing wouldn't bother me in the later, sillier movies. But in this one that's mostly playing it straight, it kind of sticks out. What can I say though? It's the original. The one that started it all, baby! It's a classic for a reason. It reaches heights that no other movie in this franchise, and few other horror movies in general, come anywhere close to. Just, you know, a little less consistently than we might remember. For every mom dummy pulled through a window, we get some shit like this.
Tina?
That's right, motherfuckers, Dream Warriors is my favorite movie in this and potentially any franchise. When I'm having a bad day, I like to watch Dream Warriors and forget my troubles. This movie is my comfort food, and this movie soothes my weary soul. Mental institutions are an overused trope in horror movies. Often, the inhabitants are treated like monsters themselves. At best, human beings reduced to something less. At worst, literal serial-killing forces of nature. The Dream Warriors takes the setting and plays it a bit more straight and a bit more compassionately. Instead of dangerous, criminally inclined monsters, the patients here are vulnerable kids with relatable problems. The institution itself is poised to let them languish until Nancy, who can relate to these kids because she fought similar things in the first movie, gives them the power to fight back. It's a nice little parable about literally reclaiming power in the face of institutions and predators who want to harm you. How compassion, understanding, and togetherness breed strength and allow good to triumph over evil. It's about not giving up on people. But it's not simply the most substantive entry thematically, it's also the most fun to watch. The effects are creative, the kills are inventive, and it contains some of the most genuinely horrific moments of the whole series. Freddy leading someone around by their exposed tendons like a marionette? Hachi-machi. The characters are all likable and distinct, which is a rarity for this kind of movie, and seeing how each one's dream persona reflected their real-life personalities and insecurities was such a good idea, and adds so much to the tension of the scene, because if they can fight back, it makes you unsure about whether they're going to die. You can't just take it as a for granted that Freddy's gonna slice them up, because maybe they're gonna use their dream powers and escape, and that keeps you invested in the scene. It's like, rarely in a horror movie does making a character more powerful make the scene scarier. And that's my list of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies ranked from least good to most goodest. Do you agree with my choices? If not, you can speak to my lawyer. Have you been disagreed with on the internet? Have people been saying your opinions are only one of many valid ways to look at a subject? Call Bobby Duke and Associates. I'm Bobby Duke. I'm a lawyer now. Hey, give me a call, Bobby Duke and Associates, 1-800-BobbyDukeandAssociates.com. Call now and receive this commemorative coin. It's illegal to disagree with people on the internet now. I'm Bobby Duke, I'm a lawyer, this is the law. Bet you're wondering what happened with me and the terrorists. Got sick of that storyline, now I'm a lawyer. Trying to have a career and raise a family, can I have it all?